Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bari Connected Podcast, where we share on all kinds of topics related to bariatric surgery. And we have a very, very, very special guest today, Shay Quinn. Say hello, Shay.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, Brenda. I've been looking forward to this for like months now, but especially this week, I've just been so excited. Like, ooh, it's almost Wednesday. So I'm so
I
excited to be here.
know. I kind of feel like we probably planned this, probably 3, 4, maybe even longer than that months ago. And
Yeah.
I'm really excited about your topic too, because it's kind of near and dear to my heart. You're talking about finding your true identity after bariatric surgery. And, you know, when we were talking about a description for this, you kind of said, it's easy to have your whole story kind of wrapped up in your bariatric journey. But really, it's not who makes us us. Sometimes we put labels on so many things, like I'm a
Hmm.
mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a brother, um,
Hmm.
I'm a nurse, I'm whatever. And it's not always about that. Our story does
Hmm.
include that, but it's about who we are. And we're going to talk into diving into what it means to be like into your true identity, what blockages get in the way, how to find more true fulfillment. And before I kind of turn the stage over to you, Shay, I want to just say to tell everybody a little, I'm going to tell everybody just a little bit about you, and then I want you to kind of dive a little deeper into that. So Shay is a human first and isn't defined by her strengths, hardships, interests, or roles. One of her core values is living in being who she was created to be. And I love that. When I watch any of your stuff on social media, I can just see that. Like it's like you're just standing there talking directly to me. And I love that. She had sleeve gastrectomy in March of 2022. And after losing over 100 pounds, has really kind of changed her life and brought her into kind of like just this bariatric world. Um, she has a degree in psychology and in psychology, and she also shares her journey openly on Instagram, YouTube, the Grow with Shay podcast, which I've been fortunate enough to be with her on that, and the Waiting Table podcast. So Shay, at this point, I'm going to mute myself for just a hot second. I'm going to pop over to our Facebook page, make sure there's any comments there. And also, if anybody is joining us live, whether it be Facebook or here, please, everyone, just feel free to introduce themselves. Say hello if you're just joining in. Any point is fine, because this event too, if you need to pop in, pop off, will be on replay till the end of the. So I'm going to just turn the stage over.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction, Brenda. And first of all, I just love what you're doing in this community. I love that there's so much opportunity just to like talk with each other. And I've been having a lot of fun on like the Facebook group, like getting to know new people. And oh, hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. So yeah, a lot of how I look at my story is kind of pre and post op, and maybe not in the typical sense of what you might think. But I really see my bariatric surgery as the catalyst of like a lot of growth and change in my life. And it's funny being a part of such a cool community in the bariatric community where a lot of you didn't know me before surgery. And that's something that I try to share about now because there's just been so much that I've learned in this amount of time. And really what got me into sharing my story and wanting to connect with people in that way is I felt like I was really alone. And I know that's a sentiment that I've talked with other people who feel similarly. And, I've struggled with having excess weight for, my entire life, pretty much. I've struggled with infertility issues, with having polycystic ovarian syndrome, um, just not feeling like I had any worth. Not that I would have identified that back in that time, but looking back, I can see that I just didn't feel like a very worthy person. And so really when I started looking into bariatric surgery is when I started trying to find other people who were like me. And, I would find certain people where it's like, ooh, I can identify with certain parts about them, but maybe they're a size 2, which no shade if you're a size 2, but that's just never been something that I could relate to. Or maybe I could relate to, oh, they enjoy cooking or, doing things like that, but they're a mom and I'm not a mom. I don't know what that's like. And so partially why I wanted to start sharing my story is I just wanted to share anything I could that could help other people feel like they weren't alone. And that's really where it kind of started. So here I am now. Never thought I would be here sharing my story and some of the things that I share on social media. Like if you would have told me 2 years ago that I would be sharing some of that, I wouldn't have believed you. But I think the coolest part that's come out of it and why I feel so passionate is that I have gotten so much community and connection just from starting to just be honest and sharing where I'm at as a person. And that was kind of an unintended consequence in a positive way of what I've gotten. And so I just want to say like thank you to everybody who's been part of that journey. And yeah, I'm really excited to talk more about this topic, but I don't know, did that fill in enough, Brenda, so you could get situated?
Absolutely, yeah. And we have lots of people here saying that they're joining.
Yay.
We have Amber, Jamie, Camelia, Teresa, Darla, Lucia, Janet, Jamie, Cece, Heather. Welcome everybody. And I love you guys. Just keep putting things in our little messages because we can see them and we love to hear like all about you guys and know kind of the direction of the conversation. We can always feel free to ask questions to Shay in the comment sections, and we'll be watching that during the entire program, whether you're live live on Facebook or here in Zoom. And so just kind of like looking to see if there's anything else. I just think I really just appreciate the support. And I just want to say too, I feel like for me this year, for whatever reason it's coming up, you were talking about earlier, sharing your story and what does it mean? Like what does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like maybe being there for one person can be just a light. I know on our podcast that you, Shay, Murph, and Chris did, we were talking about that. And even if we can be a light for one single person,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's having a hard day, and maybe just make their day a little brighter, or maybe add something that maybe changed in some way, in a way that kind of contributes to their growth and all of that. I think it's what kind of this journey is about. And
Yeah,
that's what motivates
definitely.
me and keeps me going.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to really realize that we are that. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's incredible. I know even sometimes I struggle with the self-esteem of knowing that
Mm-hmm.
you can be that for another person.
Yeah, it's
So
that imposter syndrome. It's something that I definitely still struggle with. And I think the biggest lie that I told myself was like, why share my story? It doesn't really matter because other people are sharing it. What makes my story different? And the thing about it is like there's room and space for all of us to share our stories. And yes, maybe people are sharing similar topics or things that are similar to what you're talking about, but you're not the one sharing it and you're the one that makes it different. And so that's something I think I just always want to encourage people is to share their stories because you just never know what will happen from there. Again, I didn't think that this is where I would end up just from doing that. And it's scary, but it's led to a lot of good. So,
um well, and you have a point. I know Shay is writing a book, which I definitely want to know more about here as we continue. But I think, sometimes we forget that seeing things through our own perspective, our own eyes, may resonate with certain people that,
mhm,
may not like my group, the people that are in my group may see something that resonates with you, that works with you, and it works with their lifestyle. Not everything that I write is going to work. How can I say this in a way? It's not coming out the way I want to say it. What I'm trying to say is that each community that we grow and each community that's around us um, may have something special that we offer to
mhm,
them, that maybe another person may not be able
Yep.
to say it in the same way. Like I may not be able to say things the same way you are, Shay. Even though we're telling maybe
Mhm.
the same story, maybe people resonate with you
Yes.
more than they do me, or vice versa. That's what I'm trying to
Yes.
say.
Yes, no, I totally agree. And that's why, even with the guys from the waiting table, which is the podcast that I'm a co-host for, that's why I think what we have is so special, because what I say, me and Murph could say the exact same things, but it might not resonate the same for everybody. So I totally agree with that. And one of the things that I was gonna kind of jump into and talk a bit more about was one of the surprising things after having bariatric surgery. Like when I was doing research and starting to find people, I heard a lot like, oh, after I had bariatric surgery, I became like this new person. Like I was a completely new person with new things that I liked, and I didn't even recognize myself. And for me, I kind of had a different experience with that. And I've heard other people that have said similarly, but instead of feeling like a new person, I feel like this has been almost more of a homecoming, where this is the person that I am today is who I've always been. But because of, trauma, not really feeling like I had any worth, I had a shield of protection for a long time, to where to people on the outside, I look like a new person. Like people who have known me all my life, that they've said, like, I feel like I'm getting to know somebody completely new. But to me, I feel like, oh wait, this is like who I've always been though. And I actually recognize more things that are similar with me today from back when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old. Like I feel like that I'm more of that person. And so that's been something that's interesting. And Brenda, I can't remember if I asked you that question before, but was your experience similar? Was it more of a homecoming, or was it more of like, oh, I feel like a new person? And I'd be curious if, people in the chat want to comment on that too.
Oh, that's such a great question. I feel like for myself, as the weight started coming off, I started seeing myself like in a smaller size. As far as the inner parts, the inner thoughts, the emotions and all of that, I feel like the biggest change I noticed for myself was my stress about weight went down. And I stopped those circling thoughts that I had as far as worries about that kind of went away, which was preoccupying so much of my time and I didn't realize it. So I feel like because that was out of the way and I wasn't spending so much time maybe worrying about that or thinking about that, it opened up space for me to have new relationship with other things, like opened up for me
Yes.
to be able to explore maybe my more creative aspects of myself. That's the best way I can explain it. As far as how I felt
Mm-hmm.
about myself, it felt like I became maybe lighter in my mood, like emotionally, maybe my mood was a little lighter because I felt like I was more who I felt like I should be in my skin. I know that sounds kind of crazy. It wasn't really that, I mean, my physical body was changing, but I felt like my emotions did lighten in that way because,
Mm-hmm.
but in some ways, you still have these expectations that may not always meet up. And so sometimes I still
Mm-hmm.
was finding myself, um, some of the some of the things that I've struggled with in the past, maybe
Mm-hmm.
even though I speak on these things and I'm like really out front and I'm like, if you meet me in person, I'm very social, but sometimes, I mean, sometimes I do get caught in my mind a little bit. And so,
Yeah.
that helped me kind of escape that inner critic part a little bit more.
Yeah.
So maybe being
Yeah.
more of myself, being a little lighter in like that playful spirit, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think that capacity piece is huge too, where I don't think that we realize how much brain capacity it takes to have excess weight. And that's something that I noticed a lot after bariatric surgery. It's like when I didn't have to be on like a constant diet all the time, when I didn't have to be thinking and like shaming myself because I wasn't exercising enough, it's like the weight was actually coming off for the first time. And yes, I was working for it, but it was in a different kind of way. It's like, whoa, it cleared up all this mental space of, I don't have to be thinking of like, like I said, just shaming myself or thinking about the things that I used to when I was trying to lose weight unsuccessfully. And that can be a really scary place. And I don't know that we talk about that enough, but when that has been removed, then it just opens up space for all of these like mental and emotional things to come up. And it's like, it can be very intense. And that's why I say, like, I feel like I've done probably 10 years worth of mental and emotional work in the last almost 2 years since having surgery. Because it's a lot that that you're faced with in such a short amount of time, because that capacity is a bit different. And so, I just want to validate that if you're in that space where it's like, I thought that by not having to worry about losing weight, I would feel a lot better and safer and more peaceful, but it's maybe not looking that way. Just know that that's really normal. And I experienced that too, where it's like, oh gosh, now I have to like look into like past childhood trauma stuff and why, certain things contributed to my weight loss, besides the fact, or my weight gain, besides the fact that obesity is a disease. I'm always one to say that, first and foremost, but there was definitely components of emotional eating that I struggled with as a way to cope. And so it can be scary to kind of look at yourself in the mirror for the first time, so to speak, in that way. And that's why a lot of what I talk about on my platforms relate to shame and performance. So is it a good time to kind of jump into that piece, Brenda?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm just going to add to what you said too. I almost feel like it's like peeling an onion, because sometimes we think when we get to, like, we think we're on this journey, then there's an end point, but there's really never an end point. We're always still like moving, and there's lots of parts. So like once you unpeel part of whatever it is that may have seemed like a challenge, but what happens is you uncover more of maybe different parts of yourself, and then it's kind of an opening into another day. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah,
But
I,
yes,
I
go
think
right
that,
ahead.
yeah, well, and I think with that too, that was kind of the most terrifying and exciting part of like realizing self-discovery is never ending. There's not an end point. And at first that can feel kind of defeating of like, oh, like it's hard to like do self-work and to work on relationships with other people. And it's exhausting and it's hard. And to not see an end in sight can feel kind of draining and defeating. But that's also what makes it's so beautiful too, because then I don't have to, or for me, it's given me the freedom to not feel like there's a certain timeline involved. That's why some of the merch that I have says there is no timeline, because I've put timelines on things just throughout my whole life that didn't really need to be there. And I think we try to do that a lot when it comes to learning who we were created to be, learning about our identity. Like, I have to figure out who I am right now. And unfortunately and fortunately, that's just not how it works. It is a layered thing. I like that analogy of like, it takes time to peel back those layers. And it's not a race. It's not something you have to force yourself to do. It comes with time. And I can be a very impatient and somebody who likes to have things right away. And so that process has been an opportunity to practice that patience a lot, because self-discovery is definitely a journey with no timeline. And I always say that the moment that I stop learning and growing is the moment that I just want to die. Like, not to be so super dramatic about it, but I hope that I'm always learning and growing, and I hope it's a never ending thing, because I don't ever want to be at a place where I'm stagnant and just am like, okay, I'm good with where I'm at. Like, that sounds very sad to me. So anyway, I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but
No, that's perfect. I kind of like it. To me, the only way that you can ever be like who you are in the moment is just not to just to like remove everything. Like just be in that place of
mm-hmm,
silence. I call it zero point. It's like
mm-hmm. I
nothingness.
like that.
But because we're not our emotions. We're not those
Mm-hmm,
labels. We're not
mm-hmm,
the things that's happened in the past. We're not any of those
Mhm,
things, and it's
mhm.
easy to get attached. So go ahead, continue
Yes.
on.
No, that's perfect. That's a perfect segue because for a long time, I thought my identity was shame, was performance. And those are kind of the two blockages I wanted to talk about today. But I always like to give this analogy because I think it's just a helpful visual. I see things a lot like in images and pictures. And so a lot of times when I talk, when I talk about certain analogies, that's why I talk about it that way. But with I like to think of each of us that when we were created, I like to think of pipe cleaners. And I know that's exactly where you all thought I was going with this is pipe cleaners. But you know, those like different colored pipe cleaners used to, I know when I was a kid, like I used to make little like figurines with them or, whatever. And I like to think of us that we were each created individually in these little, and we were these little pipe cleaner masterpieces. So, like in my pipe cleaner masterpiece, I might have, hot pink and orange and yellow. And Brenda, she might have, some purple and blue and green. And we were created perfectly. But then we get these thorns that come along, and these are what I call like blockages or outside blockages. And these thorns get wedged into our beautiful masterpieces. And we start to think that those thorns are part of who we are when they're not. And so, two of the blockages that I talk a lot about, because I've had a lot of experience with them in my life, are shame and performance. And shame is something that is everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. I like to think of shame as if you were to go into like a beautiful, spotless mansion and everything was in perfect order. But then you start opening up little cupboards and you realize that there's little spiders everywhere. That's kind of how shame lives, where it's everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. It's very quiet and covert. It's hard to kind of pinpoint. A lot of the lies that shame can tell you are things like you're not capable, who's going to believe you, what makes you so special, you're worthless. So that's how shame has showed up in my life. Performance is another one where it's almost like a counterpart to shame, where I think of performance as almost like a really annoying sports coach, where shame is a bit more quiet and covert. Performance is a lot louder and more aggressive and more just like in your face with things. And some of the lies that performance tend to tell are things like, if you don't do this exactly this way, you're doing it wrong. Why even try? You're going to fail. Your worth is tied up in what you do or don't do and how well you do or don't do it. And so I think it's important to identify those blockages because it's easy for us to get those twisted and think that we're them. So what I mean by that is I used to be like, gosh, like, why am I so hard on myself all the time? Or, like, why do I think I'm not capable of things when I am? And it's like, well, it's not that my true identity self believed that. It was that shame was telling me those lies that I wasn't capable, and I was getting them confused with myself, if that makes sense. So being able to just like accurately attribute where those lies are coming from is just really helpful. So instead of saying, why am I so hard on myself? I can now say, wow, shame is really making me feel like I'm not capable, or shame is making me feel like I'm not good enough or that I'm worthless. And you know what? Is that true or is that a lie? And whenever it's shame, it's always a lie for me, at least. And it's going, okay, no, that's a lie. So what is the truth? I'll pause there for a second. I know that was kind of like a lot of communication to give, but I don't know if
Oh,
we
I
have any
love it. I
comments
love
or.
it. And I think the best way to know, like for me, the best way to know if something is a lie is your emotions. Like if you find that your emotions dip like way down, then that's your body telling you there's something not right here. There's something not attuned. So, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we tell ourselves so many little things, and part of it is how like society, maybe what other people have said and we've listened
Mm-hmm.
to and we've just believed it as being our own truth, or maybe
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
it could be a figure in our maybe somebody who was more of an authority figure, a teacher or a
Mm-hmm.
parent or somebody who's maybe had that way of thinking, and we've just kind of like grasped onto it and made it our own. So
Yes. Yes. How
um,
I have this little graphic that I'll share sometimes, and it's like a pie chart, if you can picture a pie chart. And I call it like the secret sauce to all of life's problems. And how I categorize it is like some of what contributes to our problems are trauma and past experiences. Some of it is, within ourselves and kind of, just what we contribute and self-inflict on ourselves. But then the other part of that are these blockages that I've seen. And so I think it's important just to remember that it's not that there's a lot that is coming against us all at the same time. And again, just having language and being able to accurately attribute it has been really empowering for me. And so just something I wanted to add with what you said, Brenda.
oh no, that's great. And I know there's some comments in the comment section. Kind of on a side note, they're talking about shadow work, which kind of pairs into what you're talking about. So basically, what shadow work is just kind of looking at those parts that we either may be conscious of or unconscious of that kind of creep
Mm-hmm.
into our daily lives, those belief systems that lead us to maybe emotional states that don't always feel so good. And
Mm-hmm.
is there anything you want to say about that? Because I know there's a lot of sidebar conversations on that on the side.
Yeah, yeah, no, this is great. I'm not actually familiar with shadow work. I haven't heard that term. I'm going to look that up after this, but I think for me, the biggest, I'm always somebody who I'm like, okay, let's get to the root of things. Like what's kind of the boilerplate message, or what's kind of at the root of certain things. And so I think what it's come to for me a lot is knowing my worth. And that's why I use that. I talk about that a lot on my platform. So I might ask a question, if that's okay. I'll ask a question for you, Brenda, and then anybody who's listening, feel free to chime in as well. Those that know me, I can be a very like philosophical thinker. So this is a very philosophical question with no right or wrong answer. It's just something that I like to ask people. So Brenda, do you feel like you had more worth, less worth, or the same amount of worth when you were a baby compared to you now?
Oh, that's interesting.
And anybody who's listening, you can tell your thoughts. So did you have more worth, less worth, or the same amount of worth when you were a baby compared to now? So we have some people
So
saying more worth now. I saw that one come up.
it reminds me of an analogy. This is something that came to me one day whenever I was thinking about a topic similar to this is like, is our worth the same as an animal? A bird, a
Mm-hmm.
tree, plant, is our worth the same? I think, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, my own opinion is my worth is the same. And the reason why I say that
Okay.
is because our worth shouldn't be based on what we do. It shouldn't be based on the things maybe I mean, a lot of times we think it is. We think it's our job. We think it's the things that we put
Mm-hmm.
out into the world. We think it's all of these things, but really it's us. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
a creation of God and or however you want to say it, of
Mm-hmm.
some universal source of power of energy that kind of creates and um whether or not it's just like if it would be now, if I was incapacitated, is my worth any more or less
Mm-hmm.
than I am right now? So that's why I think
Mm-hmm.
it's no different, but that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. Well, and that's you kind of my second question typically after is your worth the same, more or less on your deathbed? Or like I like an example you gave, if you got in a car accident tomorrow and you couldn't, you were bedridden for the rest of your life, is your worth different at that point? And I tend to be in the same school of thought as you, Brenda, where a lot of people will tend to say, give an answer of like, oh, well, I was more worthy when I was a baby because I hadn't made any mistakes then, or I'm more worthy now because I'm contributing to society more than I was, or, I'll be more worthy on my deathbed because I will have done and accomplished more at that point. And that's where I just want to focus attention to, a lot of times that's performance that's driving that lie, that that your worth is determined based on what you do or don't do and how well you do or don't do it. And I do believe that that's a lie, where I think my worth is something that I've always had and that I always will have. But it's one thing to know something and it's a different to experience something. And so do I always know that I am a worthy person? Now I do, yes. But does it always feel like I'm a worthy person? Am I always having that experience that I'm a worthy person? Definitely not. That wavers a lot. But I think sometimes we can get that confused of, just because something is true doesn't mean that we always feel like it's true. And that's okay. But I think that's an important distinction to make.
I'm just listening.
Yeah,
I mean,
perfect.
you had some great points. I think, what, like, I guess the question is what do you think it would be like to experience that more? What is your opinion on that? What would it be like to experience knowing that more? What would that look like? What would that look like in your
Yeah.
life?
Well, I can say what it has looked like up to this point. And that's why I think with bariatric surgery, it was just my catalyst point, where after having surgery is when I, for the first time, started to experience things that I feel like I've maybe known, but I never had experienced. And so I think a question, to maybe ask yourself, and this is like, will probably take some time to answer, but it's like, well, where do I get my worth from then? That's kind of where it needs to start. And for me, after having bariatric surgeries, when I started really asking that question, because for a long time, I used to get my worth from very unstable places. I used to get it from validation from other people. Like, I was the person where I would bend over backwards and do everything for everybody else. And on the outside, it looked like oh, wow, Shay's like really loves helping people. But in reality, it was actually, I was very self-absorbed and selfish, because I was wanting to do these things, not to genuinely help people, but because I wanted the validation that came with that. I wanted people to say, Shay, you're so great. You're such a cool person. Like, and that's where I was getting my worth from. After having my surgery and I started, sitting in a lot of these questions, I noticed that validation didn't satiate me like it used to. I used to get comments like that from people I knew or whatever, and it would be like, okay, that's like my hit for the day, right? Like, I feel like I'm a worthy person. And then for whatever reason, that started to change after surgery, where I had, really great and supportive people who would say those same things and would be very supportive and validating, but it wasn't like filling me the way that it used to. And so in my personal journey, what that led me to was realizing that I needed to get my worth from a source that was more sustainable. And a lot of times I think we all are saying the same things. We just use different words for them. And so these are just the words that I use in my experience. But like, the root of it for me was God. Like, that's where I get my worth now. And again, like you said, Brenda, you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
But that's just been my answer. It doesn't mean that's everybody's answer. But now I get it from a place that's much more sustainable, much more stable. It doesn't change. And that's what makes it doable. Where now, when I do things for people, it's because I genuinely want to do it. It's not because I'm seeking validation in return, or like I'm wanting something back. And that's been a lot of work that I've tried to, work on. Not saying I do it perfectly all the time, but that's just, I guess, what it's looked like for me. So anytime where I start to feel like I'm not worthy, that's where I have to go back to the source of like, no, I know that I am, because I was created to be worthy. And it just kind of, that's what roots me in that truth. And then it's like, it's okay to still feel not worthy, but I at least know the truth. And then I come back around to feeling worthy eventually, it seems like. Does that answer that question?
Yes, yes. And another thing I'm going to ask, and this is not just for you, but everybody else here on this call, is Do you think that once we start having more of that knowing, by knowing, there's just no other way. It's just like we know, we know, we know, we
Mhm.
know. Once we start getting there in that, do you think our experiences change? Because like your life experiences, do you think your life
Mhm.
experiences start showing up differently?
Oh, for me, 100%, because what that translated to and what that looked like specifically in my life, once I knew that I was inherently worthy and deserving of value, I started getting rubbed in the wrong way when people told me lies or people treated me in a way that I knew I wasn't worthy of. And so it just became very illuminating of, and I think that's why, in the bariatric community, divorce is prevalent. I think there's a lot of relational dynamics or even like friendships that don't last after bariatric surgery. And that's a question I get all the time is like, oh, I'm so scared to get bariatric surgery because like of the divorce rate after. But the reality is bariatric surgery doesn't cause that. It just, I think, helps illuminate what's already there. And so there's been relationships in my life that after having surgery and feeling rooted of like, no, like I am worthy. And this person, though, has been a source of contributing lies and kind of reinforcing those lies that I believed for a long time. And that's not healthy for me. And it's not like a dig towards them or saying, oh, they're a terrible person. Like, that's not my business. I don't really care about that. I just know how that's affecting me. And that's contributing to me not seeing myself accurately. So I need to put boundaries there. And maybe those boundaries are not talking with that person or not seeing that person as often, or whatever the case is. But I think that's like a very specific way of how knowing that truth of I am a worthy person has shown up in a tangible way. I hang out with different people than I used to. And some of the people I hang out with some people that are the same and they've been constants in my life from the beginning, but my time is spent a lot differently now than it was pre-surgery because I know my worth. And not saying that bariatric surgery made me worthy. I'm always very like clear to make that distinction. For whatever reason, that was just the lesson or the experience that it took for me to see my worth for the first time.
I'm just kind of pausing to kind of let that sink in. There's some comments. I noticed a change of relationships, not a lot of support or understanding
Mm-hmm.
around surgery boundaries. Yes. So, and I know there's side talk about a workbook, and I think that somebody had mentioned earlier about a shadows workbook.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody wants
Mm-hmm.
to put that in the comment section, we can definitely share that. Whatever that was, because it's not related to it's not related to Shay's conversation is in particular. It's just some side conversations
Yeah,
going
that's
on, but we're
great.
happy to share that. Um, yeah, Shay, keep going. Just keep going.
Okay. Okay. I could just say you give me talk and I'll just talk about this stuff all the time just because I feel like it's so important. And I think the biggest why this is such important stuff to be talking about, many of us were not taught this when we were kids. Like, and I think that's the biggest thing that I feel the most sad about is when you don't know yourself and you don't know who you were created to be, how can you foster that in any other person? And so I think like with our parents' generation, their parents didn't know who they were, and so they weren't really fostered on knowing who they were created to be. And so like that's kind of what makes me sad looking back now, where it's like if only like our parents' generation could know who they were more and could have fostered that into us, we probably wouldn't have as many hardships as we do now. And that's the case. Like I think multiple things can be true, right? Like I think they had ownership in that as well. Again, just talking more from like a generational perspective. But I am huge on cycle breaking and doing things different. I've always been kind of weird and wacky in that way where I like doing things differently, just in general. Maybe it's just because I'm a little bit of a rebel. But when it comes to this type of stuff that we're talking about, it's so important for the next generation because I'm not a parent yet. I hope to be one day. That's like part of what got me on this journey into looking into bariatric surgery so I could conceive one day. And I am just so grateful that I know who I am. I know my worth. So that way, when I have kids, I can foster that in them from when they're born, and it's not going to be me, not saying I'll do it perfectly all the time, but it's not going to be me just projecting my garbage onto them all the time. It's going to be me learning how or knowing how to regulate my own emotions so I can help teach them how to do that for themselves. And I think that's the biggest thing. I do one-on-one coaching with clients, and I think that's one of the biggest questions I get a lot too is like, what can I do to help my kids? Or like, I want to do things differently. And it can feel kind of counterintuitive, but it has to start with you. And again, that's kind of like the worst and best part is that it's annoying because a lot of us, I just have found a trend in the bariatric community that a lot of us really enjoy helping other people and like having our focus on to other people. And so it can feel very annoying and uncomfortable when that's kind of the answer of like, you have to kind of start with you and look at your issues and the things that you need to focus on. But doing that work for yourself, that's what your kids notice and pick up on. They're going to notice, wow, mom knows who she is. And that gives me freedom and opportunity to know who I am. And I think if that's like one of the things I could say, just if you're a parent kind of in this journey of bariatric surgery, like it's okay to allow yourself to make mistakes, to learn who you are, and actually have your kids see that. Because I know for me, I would have loved to see that in my parents growing up of like, yeah, of course, they're not going to do everything perfect, but to see other people in my life and other adults in my life who knew who they were and were learning that would have given me so much help and support to like learn that for myself, where instead I didn't really see that growing up. And now I'm having to learn it as an adult in more like adult situations and scenarios, which is a lot harder. So, yeah, just, I don't know. Again, I can go off on tangents pretty easily.
No, the tangents is what brings the best information. And one thing that kind of came up to me is I know for myself, one thing that helped me in the past to kind of learning and discovering more of who I am is basically, and this came from insight from, I think it was a podcast or something I was listening to. And I love to talk about energy medicine, which is kind of like studying the body on an energetic level. And one of the things that was taught to me was, we all, many of you have probably heard of affirmations, which are short little sentences that you say to yourself that kind of brings your body to a state of being. And the little affirmation that kind of pertains to what you're saying is, I know who I am. And if you could say that over and over, even though you may not completely feel that way at the time, what it does is it brings your body into an energetic form of that. And what happens is life circumstances, just kind of like that knowing when we were talking about the knowing earlier, when you know something, your experiences start changing around you because it's not really ever the exterior. It's always what's going on inside of ourselves. So if we can change that, external experiences start changing because of what we're putting out, that little radio signal to the world. And
Mhm.
so if you could even just start by just saying, I know who I am, I know what I am, um, maybe that is a way to kind of start. And then what happens is say those exterior circumstances start bringing around life experiences that maybe either feel really good or feel really bad. There's really no judgment in either one of those. It's meant for you to
Mhm.
experience so that you can be more of that person. Like, let's say it's bringing up maybe a feeling of low self-confidence or low self-esteem. maybe that's something that it's bringing up in you so that you can let it go or resolve it. So, and the
Mhm.
inner work, yeah. So so that's just a little helpful thing that's helped me just to kind of add to what you were saying.
Yeah, and there's so much connected between the mind and body, and I think that's why bariatric surgery was the catalyst for me in a lot of ways because my physical body had a major change, by getting part of my stomach removed. And there's so much that's connected to that. And a lot of the work I do with my one-on-one clients is making that connection because again, it can feel super like jolting and like intense because it's such a big physical change and your mind and emotions don't have time to like catch up with that quick change. And there's so much that our bodies can communicate and tell to us if we're willing to listen. But a lot of us were told not to listen and taught, don't trust your body. You're going to overeat. Don't listen to your body. It's going to lead you astray, whatever it is that we were told. But man, my body has been such a helpful guide in this process of knowing what emotional and mental things I've needed to work on and at the time that I've needed to work on it. And so if that's something that anybody's interested in learning more about, I am accepting one-on-one clients now to where I can work with that. But I do eventually, I would love to put out like an e-course or something like that where I could kind of give the information a bit more generally, because that's like a whole other topic in and of itself. But our bodies are amazing.
Go ahead and share a little bit about that because we're kind of getting closer to our closing, and I would like for them to know I actually have a lot of different ways that they can get a hold of you, but I was not aware of the one-on-one coaching, so I'm so excited you brought that up.
Yeah, yeah. So I am open to accepting clients for one-on-one coaching. I do it all virtually, and I do it a little differently in that I really like to have it client led, meaning that there's no specific cadence that we need to do. It's not like we have to meet on a weekly or monthly basis at the same time every week. I really do it from more of an intuitive place. And the way that I do payment is actually kind of similar to where I have a sliding scale payment option just to kind of help with budget constraints and things like that. So if that's something you're interested in, I'm available for that. I did see a comment about my book because you had mentioned that, Brenda, and that's something I'm so
Yes.
excited about. If you go to my, it's stan.store/grow with Shay, you can find all of the information on there. But I am actually writing a fictional novel right now. I've never written a book before. I've attempted a couple times, but it just hasn't felt right. But this one has stuck. I'm at chapter, I think 11 right now. And so my goal is to have it completely finished by the end of 2024. But essentially it's about a woman named Jillian, and the book is called Obese. And it's really just about her life and what it's like living in a larger body. And my two goals with it is I want this to be something that's validating for those that have had similar experiences. I know for me, it was really frustrating growing up in a society where I never saw people that I could relate to. It's kind of how I started the conversation, but I didn't see larger people, in movies or books as the lead character. And so I really just want this to be something that's validating for people who struggle with the disease of obesity. And then the second goal is I really want it to be illuminating and eye-opening for those who haven't. And just to kind of, I have learned so much from stories and reading and watching TV and things like that. And so I'm really excited. So if you are interested in seeing what that's about, I do have the prologue and first chapter for that available. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited for that.
I'm gonna share my screen for just a second here because I actually pull it up here, Shay, before you
Oh,
came on. I
great.
have your Instagram page, so it's Grow with Shay, guys, and I'll put these at links in the chat feature on both Facebook and here. And I'll also, if you're listening to the replay, it will be in our description. But Grow with Shay, if you go to her link tree, which is right here on her bio, have it pulled up. And she
Awesome.
has the downloadable version right there where you can download.
Mhm.
I also just want to say, so they can download the first chapter, correct? Or the prologue.
It's the prologue in the first chapter. Yep, and it's free just so you can kind of get to know the character a little bit and get excited for the actual book to come out.
It's been on my list. I like want to read this. I keep I keep starting and then I'll get distracted. And I'm like, I need it. I want to
I
do this. I want to
know.
read this. That's gonna be my goal while I'm traveling the next few days. So I also
Yay.
want to just say yes. I also want to say there's a couple other links here that kind of want to just mention. Shay
Yeah, so I
is
have
one of ProCare's affiliates. Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was gonna say I try to, rotate free resources on here. So like I just posted a Christmas Carol lasagna, which is actually for my bariatric folks, where it's 3 different recipes. All of this is free for this little ebook. All of the recipes are it's essentially using all the same ingredients to make different phased foods. So it's like there's one if you're in the liquid phase, there's one if you're in the soft phase, and then there's one for like just a regular solid phase. So I have stuff like that. I have like a little questionnaire type thing that talks about like questions to consider if you're thinking about bariatric surgery. So I always have resources that are available on my Stand store that you can check out at any time. And like Brenda said, I have my ProCare affiliate link with the waiting table. So I freaking love ProCare, and I will always preach good things about you guys because you're amazing.
What's your favorite product?
Oh
I'll put you
gosh.
on the
Well,
spot.
I love that you got, well, okay, different categories here. So taste wise, it's definitely the dark chocolate calcium. I love that. I want to actually make some cookies with the dark chocolate calcium on top. I haven't gotten to that yet, but love that. And then I love that you guys have prenatal bariatric vitamins. So that's something, I'm not pregnant yet, but I hope to be. And so I love that you guys have that. Those are my top 2 favorites.
So I will here in a moment. I'll share our website and I'll share the two that you just talked about. And actually, we have a Christmas recipe for cookies with the
Oh,
ProCare
perfect.
Health with the ProCare Calcium Chunks bars. So that's kind of
Awesome.
cool that you said that. I also want to share too. Shay has her own podcast. Shay, I'm looking for
You
it
got
may
to
be
scroll down a little bit.
and it's my screen is being kind of crazy. It's not letting me scroll down, but if it's on there, there's there you can actually like listen to previous episodes, click on that.
Mhm.
I also want to say too, Shay is associated with the Waiting Table, which is another podcast. So 2 podcasts. She just stays busy. And their link tree that you will find, we are now offering this Boys of Bariatric 2024 calendar. ProCare is sponsoring. So do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah. So with Rob and Murph, they started the Waiting Table podcast about a year and a half ago. And really, they started it to support men and their journeys within the bariatric community because it's becoming more common, but especially among men, they just haven't shared their stories.
Yeah.
And so when Rob and Murph both had bariatric surgery, they wanted to find other men that they could look to for support and guidance, and just had a hard time finding them. So that's part of why they started the podcast. And then they had me a ride along come on actually this time last year, because we know that there's a lot of women in the bariatric community. And since they're not on here, I can shamelessly say that they're really old and I'm really young, and they needed some help with the social media front and things like that. So between all of us now, we have this podcast where we talk about weight loss, and we really just love showing up and supporting the community. And this is one of the ways, like one of the big ways that we've been able to do that, where this is 2024 bariatric men's calendar, where men who have had bariatric surgery are featured in this calendar. And it's beautiful. We haven't shared all the designs yet, but I've gotten to see it and it's beautiful. But the cool thing is all of the proceeds of this are actually going to someone to have weight loss surgery. So her name is Jackie. She's the recipient this year, and it's going through the Weight Loss Surgery Foundation of America. And so all of the proceeds are going. So if you are looking for Christmas presents, or you just want to have some like good looking men on display throughout the whole year, that's why I'm doing it. You can go and order. The order link is in our link tree on our Instagram for the waiting table.
So back
I'm
to
so
the waiting
excited.
table Instagram, and it's this very first one here too as well. So,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
oh, I love it. And I'm gonna pop on to the ProCare site just to kind of show the products. ProCareNow.com. I'm going to be posting her links, but since I'm sharing my screen, I can't do both at the same time. But I will share all the links that Shay just mentioned. Again, I'll share them in the chat box, or if you're listening to the replay, in the description. So
Can I
here
say too,
under
Brenda, because I just see this coming up, the scent certs are freaking
oh
amazing.
yes.
Me and my husband Dylan, we just use those because we take B vitamins and they smell awful. And so he was kind of the test, because he's like, I always gag when I take them. And so I'm like, try one of these in there. And so he did, and they really work. Like those, I forgot to mention those, but like those are one of my top favorite things that you guys do too. I just had to throw that in there.
Oh, awesome. Yes, I have put them in a bunch of my different vitamins, and actually they're not supposed to necessarily flavor the actual tablet itself. But I feel like they do a little bit. Like I open up the bottle and I don't have that overwhelming
Yes.
like medicine smell. I don't know, it just kind of flavors it. So there's an orange, a vanilla, and a mint flavor.
Peppermint. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, peppermint. So I'll show those two as well. So if you go on to the bariatric ProCareNow.com, the bariatric multivitamin that Shay was talking about is actually listed on this first first page here, and it's the prenatal vitamin. So if you're considering conceiving, or you are already pregnant, or you're post baby, that first year or so, and needing a little extra supplementation made specifically for women who have had bariatric surgery and who are in those phases. And then the other product you mentioned was, let me think here.
The chocolate calcium. And
Oh,
those
the
are
chocolate calcium.
And those are seasonal, right? Because you guys don't want to send them and have them melt, right?
Yes, you are correct. We only sell them
There
during the
they
cool months
are.
because so we have that.
I'm stocked up.
Especially
I got a
for
few
that.
different bags because I'm like, I don't want to run out of these. They're so good.
Oh, and then I'm gonna pop on here under Bari Connected on our website where it says support group handouts. I'm gonna pop on there and I'm gonna show you that recipe for the Christmas cookies. So under
Mhm.
procarenow.com, and then you look under our recipe section. We have a lot of them. And there's a Christmas chocolate chunk cookie recipe. We just loaded
Oh,
it. We're actually doing a Berry Merry Christmas, which I wanted to kind of segment into that too as well. The next I was telling Shay, I'm traveling the next few days. I'm going to Atlanta, Georgia to Dr. Connie Stapleton's house, and she is having a very Merry Christmas at her house. We closed it at 50. We just hit the 50 guests this morning. And so unfortunately that event is closed, but it will be open live. Um, the OSLP girls, Kelly and Mel from Our Sleeve Podcast will be broadcasting on their forum. And additionally, Meg, who is listed as VIP Travel Girl on her site, which is Bari Adventures on Instagram. They'll be on their Instagram page, on their YouTube pages, and one other place they sent me this morning. Um, let's see, I think it was YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. No, TikTok. I'm sorry. Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube on OSLP or Our Sleeve Life Podcast and Bari Adventures. intermittently throughout the entire day. We'll be having a workout with Rob, um, also known as Dad Rob, or
Yes.
um,
So fun.
I'm thinking of his name on Instagram. Help me out, Shay.
Wait, my weight is history.
Yeah, my weight is history. He'll be doing a live workout. We'll be having all different kinds of cooking segments during the day. We'll be having other just little fun things to interact with the people that are there. And then Connie is going to be doing a Grinch story later that evening, and we'll all be kind of sitting around our PJs, drinking hot cocoa. So here is the Christmas cookie recipe that I'll be making while we're there. And so sharing that, it's on our ProCare site under our recipes,
Yum.
our handouts. Um, what else can I tell you? Also, another little update. I wanted to kind of go back on our page. We just started something new. If you look under Bari Connected, Shay mentioned it earlier. But under our Bari Connected page, we always have all of our upcoming live events. We just added all of our December events, including Shay's. So if you decide you can't, you need to come back and listen to the replay. If you just click onto it, the on-demand will be there until the end of the month, including all these other events that we'll be hosting, including Chef Healthy Henry doing a holiday support group with us, Shay's event, and all of these other events. We usually put them on our YouTube channel about 1 week post our events. And so if you click on to the little icon YouTube, it'll pop up here to our YouTube channel, and it'll be our chocolate chunk cookie as well. So subscribe to that channel along with Shay's channel. Shay, what is the name of your channel on YouTube?
It's just Grow with Shay. All my platforms are Grow with Shay. So
Shay.
GROW with and then SHEA.
And so you can subscribe to those and you get notifications when new videos are added. Also want to just say this is the new thing. So we just started a Facebook page and a Facebook group called Bari Connected. I'm popping on to Facebook now, but it's not, I had it set up, but of course it popped off because I was posting there as we've been talking, so I'm going to have to click off of that. But if you click onto our Bari Connected page at the bottom here, follow our Facebook page and Bari Facebook group, which is Bari Connected. Actually, I could probably just click in there.
I've been loving this group too. It's been so fun to like add people in. And I've heard that Facebook can be a bit brutal, like as far as like some of the groups can be a bit intense. And so when you guys created one, I'm like, finally, I know this will be like a very supportive and uplifting group. So I'm excited to be a part of it there.
Oh, thank you so much. You know what? We just started it like a couple days ago, and I'm excited because we've got quite a few members that's been joining. We started some chats for people. We have just a little thing. There's so many different, I was like really scared about creating a Facebook group because there's so many groups out there. And I just had to kind of come just what you were earlier about, why create something new if there's so much else out there. But I knew like this community, you guys are so amazing, this Bari Connected community with what we're offering. And I've just met so many incredible people over my own journey. And I just wanted to be able to connect with all of those people on a more ongoing basis. So feel free to join us guys on Bari Connected. So their Facebook page is called Bari Connect because I couldn't call it Connected, whatever reason. And then the Facebook group is Bari Connected, and you can post on there. So, please hop on there, join us, and really that's pretty much all I had. Shay, I'd love for you to share some closing thoughts too, and then I want to take a few little questions and answers right before we quit here.
Yeah, I think overall, the message that I always try to just share is that overall, whoever you are that's listening, you are worthy, you are loved, even if it doesn't feel that way. That's the truth. Sorry, it just is. And yeah, if there's anything I can do to support you, support your journey, feel free to reach out on Instagram. My email is just growwithshay@gmail.com. Happy to support in any way I can.
And Shay, I had promised I was posting those links, and I will do that right now. I got a bunch of stuff, including your code. One other thing, your coaching. So how do they get a hold of you for that? How's the best way?
Yeah. So you can just reach out on Instagram, TikTok, or just send me an email and just say that you're interested in coaching. The coaching that I offer is, I call it more like mental and emotional coaching. That's what I focus on. So if you're wanting like, nutrition or exercise related coaching, that's not what this kind of style is. It's more focused around working through like past trauma, doing like body and mind connected type work. Just how I kind of see myself in those dynamics is that I'm just somebody holding up a mirror and holding up your hand, because it can be really scary to look at yourself in the mirror for the first time. And so I'm just somebody that will help and ask questions and just kind of guide you through that process of like really getting to the root of deep things. And it's a painful process. It can be really uncomfortable, but that's where I have found the most amount of healing. And other clients that I've worked with have said similar things. So if you are interested in that, just feel free to message me, Instagram, TikTok, or you can reach out on email.
And I just have to say too, if you are looking for somebody in that insight, Shay is an easy person to talk to. And Shay, with your background and knowledge, I mean, you have a master's degree in psychology. Obviously, you do have some definite besides coaching is a little different from just, going to a counselor or someone like that. But
Right.
um very easy to talk to, and I feel like very open, like as far as feeling comfortable talking to someone. I feel like you're a very comfortable person to talk to. So highly
Thank
recommend on
you.
that. Um and I just want to say I'm going to write here too our website in case anybody wants to check that out for all these extra little things that we talked about. It's procarenow.com. I'll put that on the Facebook page before we end too, just in case anybody wants to check that out here. I'm going to, takes me a second, guys. Apologize about that. But I just want to thank everybody for being here with us, spending their wonderful time. To me, time is probably one of the most precious things that you can share with another person, along with um, not only for us, but for you to, um, I don't know, be able to dive deeper into these things for yourself. And so I am actually going to also here, while I'm thinking about it, I'll post the page for our Bari Connected, the link for that
Awesome.
as well. I'm posting all kinds of links here, just a little busy gal.
That's great. No, that's perfect. I've loved all the conversation, and please reach out. Like, I love meeting new people. And I know when I first entered into the bariatric community space, I was a bit timid and like, oh, like I don't want to reach out, or I don't know. I just like was kind of nervous. So like if you need some like a person to reach out to, like I love talking with people. So please feel free to reach out and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Well, Shay, thank you for being here. Again, thank you everybody else for being here. Um, feel free to reach out. And until the next time we're together, many blessings and happy Christmas to everybody.
Woohoo!
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brenda.
Bye, everybody.